Hey guys, Mike here with EBR, and today is a best list day. We're doing the best electric trikes of 2025. Now, I'm gonna jump right into the list because I don't want to keep you guys waiting, but some quick ground rules. One is nobody can pay me to be on this list. I don't accept payments from brands because I'm sure a couple of them would love to just make a quick payment and get on the list, but I don't allow it. We don't accept it. There is no money exchanging hands to be on this list. Now, with that said, I personally tested all the bikes on here, hands-on, spent hours in the saddle of each, and I kind of have a good idea of the personality of each bike and what makes them shine in their own kind of unique way. And I'm excited to share those with you guys today. And finally, if you do buy a trike through one of the links I provide down in the description, I will receive a small commission as a thank you from the brand for just kind of highlighting and marketing their bike. Now, with that said, let's jump into the best electric trikes of 2025. All right, so the first bike or trike on the list is going to be by Rad Power, and that's the RadTrike 1. Now, I picked this one first by a specific reasoning, and that is when you talk about trikes, one of the big elephants in the room is the tipping factor. Because it's got a three-wheel design, one wheel up front, two wheels on the back, when you go around corners, especially at speed, you have a higher tipping probability or a higher risk of tipping the trike over. So generally these are capped at 15 miles an hour, and that's just something to be aware of when you ride the bike. But the RadTrike 1 made this list for a few reasons, but most importantly, it's got the widest width of the rear two wheels, meaning that it's the most stable. So when you ride this one after riding some others on this list that have a more narrow width wheelbase, you'll feel an immediate difference in the stability factor. So I like to point this one out immediately just to kind of get anybody who's like really concerned about the tipping factor, just point them in the right direction for the bike that's got a nice wide width rear end that's going to help the bike just feel more stable and more solid when you're riding it. Now, some basic specs on this one. It's priced at $16.99. It's got an advertised range of 55 miles or up to 55 miles. In my personal testing, I got just shy of that at 54 miles. And the speed on this bike is capped at 14 miles an hour. And the battery is 480 watt hours with a max payload, so total cargo capacity, including the rider, 415 pounds. Now, some things I liked about this, oh, and one other spec, the weight of this one is 82 pounds. That's an important one I will give for all the bikes. Now, some things I like about the Rad. So the one is, it's a different design. So sure, it's a three-wheel design like all the other trikes, but this is the only one on the list where the front wheel has the hub motor. So it's a front hub motor. Generally, we see a rear hub motor, but on this trike design, it's the front hub, meaning the motor is pulling you rather than typically pushing you as it would on a rear hub. Now, this is also a different braking setup. So that front hub motor is 750 watts. They don't list the torque or the peaking wattage, just get that out there as well. But the braking setup on this one is going to be unique. So up front, we've got a cable actuated disc brake on the front wheel. But then in the rear, both wheels have what's called coaster brakes. So if you're not familiar with what coaster brakes are, if you remember getting a bike when you were younger, maybe from a department store, and you couldn't pedal those pedals backwards without it braking, that's a coaster brake. So this is the only bike on the list that also has coaster brakes, a unique way to stop the bike that I almost forgot how to do because I hadn't ridden a bike in so long with coaster brakes. But it's just a unique setup. Now the front the front cable actuated brake works well, but it works well in conjunction with the coaster brakes. I wouldn't want to rely entirely on one single wheel being stopped via cable actuation. Now also what I like about this one is it's almost a dated design, right? So we've got a battery that's mounted to the frame. We've got no internally routed cables. We have all the cabling out front of the bike. And it's just a very simple design, but that's kind of why I like it. There's no fancy tech on it. There's no super, techie features that you're gonna have to worry about over time with software updates or anything like that. Even the display doesn't have a screen. It just lights up a couple indicators so you know roughly what's going on with the bike, but there's no speedometer. It's just a very simple dialed back version of an electric trike that I think that simpleness to it is gonna help stand the test of time when you talk about longevity of, parts and components and software, things like that. So that was why I picked this one. Unique design, but really this one is known, and what everyone thinks of when they ride this is it's just the one that feels the most stable. So if you don't care about maybe lacking on some of the tech features and the more modern looks, and you want something more that's tried and true as far as design goes and will ride a little bit more stable, RadTrike 1 is going to be your best bet. All right, so the next electric trike on the list for our best of 2025 is the lightest on the list out of all the trikes that I tested. and that is going to be the Lectric XP Trike. Now, Lectric is already known for just kind of trying to differentiate themselves from the rest of the market, and one of the ways they do that is by offering what I think is probably some of the best value in e-bikes, and that's because not only is this bike the lightest on the list, but it also has the most included free accessories. So things like an upgraded saddle to give you a backrest and a suspension seat post, which if you don't know about suspension seat posts, they may seem a little gimmicky to you. It's essentially a, well, suspension built into the seat post of the bike with about 40 millimeters of piston travel actuation that really will just do a good job of relieving your lower back from the bumps on the road. So instead of them just transferring straight up through a solid seat post into your back and you feeling all those vibrations, a suspension seat post is just going to kind of reduce all of that felt rigidity and chatter of the road. And ultimately, if you have back concerns or lower back pain, and you're just kind of thinking about that when you think about buying a bike, this would be something I would lean you towards. And being the lightest on the list, it just kind of lends to that giving your back a break type deal, because it's going to be easier to move, easier to store, easier to fold. Everything just gets a little bit easier when you get a little bit lighter. Now, some basic specs on the Lectric XP Trike are priced at $14.99. So again, lots of value. They do throw in an upgraded headlight, a upgraded seat, the upgraded suspension seat post, and both cargo front and rear cargo baskets. So really they pack in a lot of extra features into the lightest electric trike in the XP Trike. Now, this one has a top speed of 14 miles an hour like most of them. They say range goes up to 40 miles. I was able to eke out 41, so just a hair past their estimation. It's got a 500-watt rear hub motor with a differential built into the axle, so that means both tires don't spin at the same speed when you're going around corners, because that would get really odd. So that proper rear end differential is just gonna make that rear hub motor work effectively on a trike design. Now, that motor can peak at 1,092 watts. And it's got a 48-volt battery that's UL 2271 certified. And again, the weight is just 68 pounds, coming in at the lightest on the list. Now, when you get a lighter bike, of course, it's easier to fold and move all those things as well, but it's also better when you're riding it. You're gonna get a little bit better with range, you're gonna get a little bit better with acceleration. Anytime you make a bike lighter, it gets a little more efficient and a little more quicker. Hence, check out Tour de France and things like that. They want the lightest possible everything. In this case, it just equals to a more efficient battery, a little bit more range, and a little bit easier to move around. I don't think you can take the Tour de France. I don't think they allow trikes into that. All right, so the third bike on the list is going to be the Mooncool TK1. Now, you may have seen these guys coming around lately. I started seeing their ads about 6 months ago, and I started seeing them everywhere. And then I got one for testing. They shipped me a copy of their TK1 folding trike, and I gotta say, done pretty well. So comes in at $15.99. Now, they've got 7 fun colors, so if you like brighter colors, more colorful bikes, this would be the brand I would say check out. And if you're looking for extra range, this was why I picked the Mooncool TK1. Sure, it offers a lot of the same things like similar speeds and power, but it's got the longest range on the list at up to 70 miles. Now with the understanding that that's in ideal conditions, minimum PAS levels, minimum assistance. But I put it in the middle of the road, so PAS 3, and I just did a typical ride, not pushing it on the upper limit and not pushing it at the slowest, just to see what I'd get with just general real world usage, and I got 52 miles. Now that's a pretty massive distance to cover on an e-bike or an e-trike, but nonetheless, if you're looking for extra range and some fun colors, the Mooncool TK1 is certainly a good option. So some basic information about it. It's currently $15.99, but right now on their website, it does say they take an extra $100 off when it's in the cart at checkout. So technically, as of today, it's $14.99. I don't know how long that'll last, just keep that in mind. Now this one's speed is 16 miles an hour, so slightly higher than that 14, 15 we usually see. And again, the range they advertise between 35 and 70 miles. I was able to get 52. Now this has a 500-watt rear hub motor. Now it comes in with a max payload of 450 pounds, but it's also one of the heavier bikes on the list at 97 pounds. That's complete with the battery, everything out the door, 97 pounds. Now, also this comes standard with dual baskets in front and rear. So Lectric tosses them in as an accessory, Mooncool throws them in as well. And some of the others on this list, if you want the extra front basket, you'll need to buy that as an optional accessory. So it is nice that Mooncool tosses both of those in with the TK1. And it's easy to fold. It rides really nice. All in all, I had no troubles with that bike, and I thought it was a pretty good list, and I figured it earned a spot here on the best trikes of 2025. All right, so the next trike, number 4 on our list of best, is the Retrospec Boca Rev. Now this one was picked for a very specific reason. This is for all of you out there who don't care about range, you don't care about speed, you don't care about what color it is or payload. You just want the most comfortable electric trike possible. Well, my friends, to me, that is the Retrospec Boca Rev. So I'll get into why I think it's the most comfortable in just a moment. Let me run through the quick specs on it. So this one does come in at $15.99. Its top speed is 14 miles an hour. And when it comes to range, they say you can get up to 49 miles. In my testing, I got 46 miles, so pretty close to that. The battery is a 48 volt, 500 watt hour battery. And the weight of this trike is 85 pounds. Now, this is also a folding trike like the others on the list, except for that red. And this one, like I said, it made the list because it's by far the most comfortable trike we have. You get to ride a lot of different electric bikes here and electric trikes as well. And this one, when I was doing all my just crunching numbers and looking at all the specs of these trikes to make this list, when I was riding each of them this past week, just to kind of refresh my memory, when I got on this one, this is the one that you're just like, oh yeah, this is the comfortable e-trike. So that could be a lot to do with the plush seat it has. So it's got a pretty thick seat with a nice supportive backrest on it. But beyond that, it's got higher volume tires, so we've kind of got some fat tires on it, and you can air those down just a couple PSIs. And what that does is it gives you a little bit of extra vibration dampening in all 3 wheels as you ride. And ultimately, between the geo of the frame or geometry of the frame, those wide tires you can air down just a hair to get comfort, and that big plush seat, this bike is for those of you who love comfort. All right, guys, so the last on the list, and of course, certainly not least, is the Mokwheel Granite. Now, Mokwheel does something when they build bikes, at least when I think of Mokwheel, and that is building a bike with some heft, with some muscle. These are just beefy, capable bikes. So think of like their Basalt fat tire all-terrain bike or their Obsidian 1000-watt fat tire bike. Those bikes are built for adventure, they're built for getting a lot done, and they're built with a lot of muscle. Well, they took those same kind of adventurous ethos and they put them into a trike, which was a little outside of the box, but I kind of like it. Now it's priced at $18.99, and when it comes to the specs and the features, it starts to make sense. So it's more capable, it can go faster, it can carry a little bit. So at $18.99, you're getting the fastest trike on the list. That's also quite comfortable, but I'll get into that in just a second. Now they say its range is 45 to 55 miles. In my testing, I got 48 miles. It's got a rear hub motor, 500 watts. So we've got that open differential rear end, and that puts out 70 Newton meters of torque. And you can really feel that torque when you're pulling any cargo or you're going up a steeper hill. This trike is the one with the muscle and the speed. Now it's got a max payload of 350 pounds, and with all this extra capability, the suspension fork, the comfort factors, the motor and battery being a little bit beefier, it's the heaviest on the list. So this one also folds, but it's also 99.6 pounds, essentially a 100-pound electric trike. So again, bring a buddy when you move these if you're not turning it on and driving it somewhere. This is not going to move quickly or easily because it's just the biggest and most capable. Now, this one also is super comfortable. It's not quite as comfortable as that Boca Rev. That's why that was reserved as my comfort king. But this one does have a nice supportive upright backrest on the seat with an adjustability lever. And it's got a suspension seat post to kind of take in and dampen the vibrations on the road that don't travel up through your spine. And then it's also got a front suspension fork. So really, between the larger tires, the suspension fork, and the suspension seat post, all of that team up to just make it a comfortable ride. Plus the overall weight at 100 pounds, it's very planted feeling, just easy to get around, the fastest on the list. And that makes up my final pick for best e-trikes of 2025. All right, guys, so that makes up the best trikes of 2025. Now, if you want a quick recap and you weren't taking notes, one was the RadTrike as the most stable. It's got that widest rear width, making it the easiest to corner in and feels the most stable. But remember, that one has a harder time fitting through standard doorways because of that wider rear end, and it does not fold like the other 4 on the list. Then we had the XP Trike. That one is the lightest, coming in at just 68 pounds, and in my opinion, one of the best values. They have the lowest price on this list, offer the most accessories, and the lightest weight. That one is just a good all-arounder. Then we have the Mooncool TK1. That is the e-trike for those of you who obsess about range and want to be able to go the longest run without charging your bike. That Mooncool has range upwards of 70 miles. I was able to get in the 50s on it, and in ideal conditions, you can push it up to that 70-mile max. Then we had the Retrospec Boca Rev. That one, in my opinion, is just the king of comfort. That's the one where you don't care about any other spec. You want to be comfy on your ride. That's where Retrospec Boca Rev falls in. And then last was the Mokwheel Granite. That's just going to be the fastest one on the list, coming in at 20 miles an hour faster than all the other trikes, and just a beefy, burly bike or trike that gets it done every time. All in all, those 5 made the list. If I missed one you think should be on there, you can yell at me down in the comments and I will humbly accept it and reply best I can. If you have questions about any of these, drop them down below and I will find out the answers and personally get back to you. And if you haven't done so already, consider liking and subscribing. We have a lot more of these videos coming out. And until the next video drops, I'll see you guys out on the trail.